Hello Commanders, I'm Commander Caesar, and just about recently asked us what is our favorite lucrative activity we love doing. So I think for my favorite activity is participation in wars and conflict zones, especially when it's our faction war. It includes both conflict zones and ground conflict zones from DLC. Why I like doing that? Because wars are important stuff if we're talking about faction expansion. War between factions is something that happens when two factions have the same amount of influence, and it lasts to up 7 days, where a faction needs to win 4 of them. Doesn't have to be in a row, and then the faction wins the war and goes higher in the system ranking. When the faction is on top of the system ranking, it can continue spreading its influence to start the expansion to another system. So without winning wars or elections in some cases, it's technically not possible for any faction to expand to another system. So I think that's why I like doing this, because it's just so important for faction development. But in other cases it's just fun to just play some FPS game inside this huge sandbox. So conflict zones, ground conflict zones are something different than casual conflict zones in space. It was added from the Odyssey DLC, and of course because it was from the DLC that is paid, so ground conflict zones are pretty more valuable than the casual one. So at the highest threat level, which is high, you can get around from like 50 to 80,000 credits per soldier, and there's like a lot of enforcers and sharpshooters which are the most valuable, like around 80,000 credits per kill. So to get that money in space conflict zones, you need to quite often shoot a ship for a few minutes, especially when it's a bigger ship. But in ground conflict zones, it's just a couple of seconds before you kill any soldier, even enforcer, if you have a good weapon. So ground conflict zones, beside that feeling of playing FPS game, it's also very profitable activity to do. And there's no there's a risk that when you die the conflict zone is automatically lost. Now you can just respawn in a matter of half a minute and come back to the conflict zone right from the dropship, which are flying above the settlement all the time, so there's really no risk at you. You don't lose any bounty, any rewards, so I think that's pretty OP if you're talking about gaining money from combat. Of course there's nothing profitable more than hunting targoids, but it's not a hard thing to do, but also important for factions. It's pretty weird balance if you ask me. But changing the topic, I don't always help my faction while doing wars. The settlement I'm in right now doesn't belong to my faction, nor it's trying to capture it, but it does belong to the Federation, which we just don't like very much, so I'm just trying to help random factions to win their wars, because why not? I think that was everything I wanted to say. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Fly safe, fly free, Commanders.